the Healing Through Love podcast with Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. In episode 8, Lunaria Gaia talks about how to be perfectly imperfect.
You know, when we're on this journey of moving forward, it's quite frequently a step forward and 2 steps back. How have you managed to handle the setbacks and still have that vision for moving forward?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to take a breath to really feel that for you. The answer that's coming through for me, Charlene, more than anything is that where I am now, I prefer than where I was. So even if I'm 2 steps back, it's better than where I was in the beginning. And I think remembering that, having that reality check almost, even on those hard days, even when it's bad, I look around at my life right now when I may feel crappy about things and I think, my gosh, me 5 years ago would be jealous. Actually, probably more accurately is inspired. You know, 5 years ago, me was dreaming of being me right now. And I think even in those early days when I first, became a coach and first went down the NLP path, 5 years ago version of that, or my 13-year-old self would be looking up to me going, she did it. And so...
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Charlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Lynch from charlenelynch.com. Healing Through Love is a social enterprise whose vision is to shift awareness on domestic and family violence within the community and support victims and survivors. Our mission to provide family and domestic violence survivor with a soft place to land by offering advice and services available to them and their families. We interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who've experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. As well as Healing Through Love podcast, we hold annual Pamper Days here in Adelaide and also in Tasmania. For survivors of domestic and family violence, local businesses come together and pay it forward by providing their services and resources for the day for free. To these survivors, just think a day spa. It's an amazing indulgent day. And our special guest today is Luna, a keynote speaker and facilitator specializing in inspiring confidence, breaking through mental blocks and self-doubt, and showing you how to be happier and more productive and to be authentically you. She is an international best-selling author. And the book is called Perfectly Imperfect. Beautiful. I love that. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yes, likewise.
Your complete guide to loving yourself and loving your body. An accomplished content creator, certified NLP practitioner, and confidence trainer and influencer with close to 30,000 followers across social media and platforms and a decade of life-changing work with women. I would love to introduce our special guest today, Luna. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlene, and everyone on the Healing Through Love podcast. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's such a blessing to be in your proximity. I would wonder if we could start today's communication with a little bit about your story so that our listeners can relate to you.
Yeah, of course. You know, for me, you spoke about me being perfectly imperfect, writing that book. For me, it wasn't always like that. I spent a long time with myself, hating myself. I spent a long time thinking that I wasn't enough, that I was worthless, and not necessarily because of anything that happened to me in my outside world, but it was just the norm. I grew up in the family of 5 children. I was the youngest and only girl. And it was patriarchal from that perspective that, I was a girl, so therefore I was less. And so I grew up also watching my mother not particularly like herself either. going on diets all the time, constantly thinking that her body was wrong before, never really coming to the realization that she was enough as she was. And so I grew up that way. I grew up learning that I wasn't okay, who I wasn't enough. And that really attracted a whole bunch of different people to me, people who didn't treat me particularly well. I didn't treat myself particularly well at all. When I say particularly well, to me, I would say, and I've said it before, that I feel like I was in an abusive relationship with myself. Physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. On many levels, I harmed myself on a regular basis. And so it's been the journey out of that. It's been the journey of no longer being my own, being a victim to myself and being able to move beyond and through that.
It's a powerful story. It's like the human condition. Ooh. It seems to be a pattern of behavior that's, across generations, and male or female, this sense of less than, this sense of low self-esteem, low self-worth seems to be our biggest challenge as being human, when it really needs to be the other way around, because we're hugely amazing.
Yes. And flawed, of course. Like there's no doubt about it. None of us have every single duck in a row. We all have some level of insecurities or some levels of, I say, quote, flaw that might be perceived as a flaw. But the reality is we are powerful, magnificent, wonderful creatures. And if we just saw ourselves the way that others see us, most people think that we're amazing. And if we just started to even see a fraction of that, then our whole lives begin to change.
So
and the world does. And the world does.
To hold the mirror up. I love it. I love the analogy of the golf ball. Like I'm a terrible golfer. My other half is trying to teach me, and he's got infinite patience because I'm shocking at it. But I love the story of the golf ball. When they originally created it, it was completely perfectly round. And what they noticed is the more that they used the golf ball, with the more dents and scratches that it got in it, the further and truer it flew. And so then golf balls were created with the dents and scratches already in them. And so we're the same. It's our dents and our scratches that make us go through or truer further than anything else. So I love the story of the golf ball. Now, if I could just smash playing golf.
Well, I hear that even the experts spend tens of thousands of hours trying to get that right and still don't always. So, good luck. Keep going. Practice makes progress, huh?
It's a great way to get some sunshine.
I think so.
What a journey. I've got to ask, was there one particular thing that happened for you that's turned the switch, or was it a series of things and something broke the camel's back? Like what was the transition point for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually get asked that a lot. Was there a turning point? Is there a time where it just goes, snap, I can't do this anymore? And look, I think that I would love to be able to say that. I think that there's a sexiness of that. There's a version that people want to aspire to. I think that there's this almost addiction to one day I'm going to wake up and it's all going to be okay. And I think that's lovely. And it does happen for people. It did not happen for me that way. So for me, it was really this evolution. There was a growth towards that. I had been living overseas in my early 20s. I developed an eating disorder by that point in time. And I found for myself that when I arrived back in Australia, I needed something different. I needed to be educated. And that's when I found coaching and NLP, and I went down that path. All the while, I suppose if I was going to put it down to one turning point, it was the death of my brother. So in my late 20s, he was only in his late 20s too, he suddenly died. And that really propelled the journey for me, because effectively I thought to myself, I've spent my whole life hating myself up until the age of 27. And my darling brother at 28 passed away. Maybe I don't have as many hours and days and years left than I think. And it wasn't out of fear. It was more out of, a rude awakening, an awakening of like, well, should I keep wasting my life and my energy hating myself? Or maybe could I figure out a way to do it differently? So, but that didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a Pantene ad, it wasn't just before and after. It was years. It was years of working on myself, figuring it out, coaching, educating, learning embodiment experiences, spirituality, a whole bunch of different things for me. I think my brother passing was a major catalyst, but I build my relationship with myself deeper and deeper every day, even now. Even now, there are moments like any relationship, Charlene, I think that you with your other half, we're always learning about each other. We're always connecting deeper. Ideally, we're always learning from one another. And I feel that my relationship with myself is exactly that.
So how do you on a daily basis build that relationship with yourself that our listeners might be able to, take that on board for themselves?
Yeah, I love that. Look, I think the first thing is that when we start on this journey, most people don't know who they are because we've spent so much time listening to the voices of other people. We've been listening to people who have told us that we're not enough. And maybe that's a very mild way that they've put it, right? From an abusive perspective, maybe we've been told on repeat with physical acts, but also mental and emotional ones that we're not okay. For even watching my parents, my mother was absolutely controlled by my father saying, you're not enough, you're not okay, you can't shine. And so we've spent a lot of time listening to the voices of other people and not a lot of time listening to the truth of our own voice. And when we stop and actually spend more time with us, literally I spend time with myself on a regular basis. I listen to not the initial voice that might be my parents or society or maybe people who haven't treated me very well, not that voice, but what's going on down here? What's beyond that? What's below that? For your listeners out there, spend a little bit more time with yourself. Be brave enough to go out for lunch on your own. Take a book if you need to. That's perfectly okay. Spend more quality time with you. We can't expect to have a good relationship with ourselves if we never spend any time with us. So that's always the first one.
I love it. And where do you sit with journaling and prayer and meditation?
Oh, yeah, love it. For me, they are all tools that I use at different stages for different things. I really love the analogy of you can't build a house with just a hammer. You need other tools. We're going to need other tools and other equipment. So I use meditation, I use prayer, I use journaling in the same way that I use yoga or walking or connecting with people like yourself, reading, and also doing my work. So all of it each one of those things that you mentioned, there are tools. So some days I need to journal. Some days I need to dance. I just need to wriggle it out of our body. That's part of the embodiment training that I've experienced myself, is that we spend a lot of time in our heads up here. If we can spend a bit more time in our body and start to just even if everybody just started shaking their backside now, it's pretty difficult to stay unhappy in that one moment. Even you got a smile on your face, we feel a bit silly, and it has the capacity to change the way we're experiencing in the moment. It doesn't take away the pain in general, and we still need to work through that. But for me, I use meditation when I need to bring it down. I use dance when I need to move. I use journaling when it feels like there's too much in me and I need to get it out. In the same way that I may have binged and purged in the past, journaling is like me being able to write it all out and get it out, stream of consciousness. So, and prayer, I think it's something that I do every single day. I'm constantly having a conversation with my creator.
I love it. I'm smiling particularly because I'm a professional dancer and I dance for a living.
Yes.
And what I've managed to do is to bring that belly dancing into my speaking. So I love it. They think it's entertaining that anyone at my age is still dancing. And so I get the audience to belly dance as a pattern interrupt during the performance. So I love it. I think it's a great way to shift our state. Yep. And to get out of our heads and into our body and have that beautiful body awareness. I love it.
I think also there that you said about someone at your age still dancing, it's like how absurd to think that this very human primal thing that we do to express, Indigenous cultures have been dancing, tribals dance, that's how they express. And to think that we shouldn't because we've reached a certain age speaks to how much we limit ourselves.
I know. So this dance group that I'm in, we're age 50 to about 70. In Australia, it's like an unspoken rule that in public you don't belly dance after 50. And we're like, nah, we're rewriting the rule. Yes. So we're all over 50 and we perform and we love it.
We does too, because you're giving an example. You've got other women in their 50s, 60s and 70s going, maybe I can too. I have a woman that she's 78. She just enrolled in a course with me to learn how to do boundaries. And she's never been on Zoom before in her entire life. She's local. So I went to her house, gave her a 30-minute tutorial, and she's joining us. Not only is she, learning about technology, but she's learning how to set boundaries in our late 70s. It's never too late, and we're never too old as far as I'm concerned.
It's so true. It's so true. I love it. So when you speak on stage,
Mhm.
what is it that you're bringing there? So what is the subjects that you're talking about? Is it many and varied, or is there one in particular that you love to share?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think the root of it is always, how do you connect more deeply with you and love what is? That is the root of it. I talk about communication. I talk about boundaries, the course coming up soon. I talk about different subjects, but the root of that is all, how can I love and respect me more? How can I live in a world more authentically and true to myself? Because even if you look at a subject like boundaries, for example, really when we're not setting effective boundaries and allowing people to cross them on a regular basis, mildly, I'm not talking about an abuse situation here, there's no victim blaming around this, is that we are teaching people how to treat us. And that diminishes our self-esteem, because when we say, no, you can't do that, or I don't want you taking me for granted because I'm picking the grandkids up 12 times this week, and they just keep crossing your boundaries, we feel like crap about ourselves. So everything that I do is, how do you come back to living authentically true to you and loving what you are effectively?
Oh, I love it. It's so true. And boundaries are important for our own internal growth and also for how other people treat us. I love it. So you run several courses and you've got one that's coming up. I know that it's starting in September. So
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more with us about that? And will you be running that program again?
Yeah, of course. So it's called Babes with Boundaries, and the next one comes up September 1st. So we may have missed, so hello from the past for those of you who are watching afterwards. It's been great. The weather's wonderful. Thanks for having us. So with Babes with Boundaries, to me, it's a real passion of mine that women particularly are overgivers, people pleasers. Not all, but many, many women that I experience, we have this nurturing nature about us that gives and gives and gives, and people pleasers, and wants other people to be happy at the sacrifice of our own happiness. And that's tiring. That wears us down. That makes us not feel great about ourselves. Yet we don't really know how to do it differently. So what I've noticed, particularly with my clients and the people that I work with, that they don't want to be assertive because they only ever know how to come up with as aggressive or passive. It's they stay quiet, they stay quiet, they stay quiet, they stay quiet until they can't take any more, then they explode. In which case, no one particularly takes them seriously because they've just had an emotional outburst, right? So the pattern starts again, and they're actually losing respect as they go along, and it's making it harder for them to have credibility. So for me, if we teach the very specifics of how to set a boundary in the first place, how to communicate, there's lots of role playing in it. So I'll actually be role playing scenarios whereby all the sessions are recorded, so you can listen back and say, how did she do it that time? How did I craft that language when the emotions are high, when you've been triggered? How do you actually come across effectively and communicate in a way that doesn't diminish your power, but also doesn't diminish the other person either? And that's effectively what I'm teaching. How do we communicate more effectively from a perspective where my boundary is respecting both you and I at the same time?
I love it. Coming from a place of mutual respect. I love it. What's your thoughts in and around breath work then and breathing? As an NLP expert, is that something that you bring to the party?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely just part of what I do on a regular basis. So even just before coming on today, I noticed that actually both you and I just took a breath. It was just and I use that with breath movement and sound. When we were talking before about shaking, I'll often, particularly in a highly emotive state, taking a breath, as you would know, Charlene, is like, it allows you. I think that when it comes to people speaking their truth too, and having that moment that's a bit conflict and a bit scary, they try to speak over, they try to get everything out fast. It's like, you're allowed to take a breath. You're allowed to just go, oh, I'm just feeling into that. You're allowed to say that. Having that space where we use our breath. I use it in yoga all the time too, different breath techniques, the box breathing, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. They all teach us how to regulate our nervous system.
Absolutely.
Highly recommend it. Yeah.
So wow, what a journey from self-hatred to self-love.
Yeah.
And you've identified that it was not one particular thing. However, the death of your brother really did bring it to the forefront.
Mhm.
You know, when we're on this journey of moving forward, it's quite frequently a step forward and two steps back. How have you managed to handle the setbacks and still have that vision for moving forward?
Yeah, great question. And I'm going to take a breath to really feel that for you. The answer that's coming through for me, Charlene, more than anything is that where I am now, I prefer than where I was. So even if I'm two steps back, it's better than where I was in the beginning. And I think remembering that, having that reality check almost, even on those hard days, even when it's bad, I look around at my life right now when I may feel crappy about things. And I think, my gosh, me 5 years ago would be jealous. Actually, probably more accurately, is inspired. 5 years ago, me was dreaming of being me right now. And I think even in those early days when I first, became a coach and first went down the NLP path, 5 years ago version of that, or my 13-year-old self would be looking up to me going, she did it. And so I do it for not only the little girl inside of me, but the little teenager. My 14-year-old self who wanted to be as confident and self-assured as what I am now, even on my worst days, is her dream. So I keep reminding myself of that. Yes, I believe that we need to work through the emotions that come up. It's not just put on a happy face. I do not believe in toxic positivity. It's not how I roll at all. We need to face the emotions. We need to ideally get help to work ourselves through the emotions and the trauma, what comes up. And also remember that where you are now, a past version of you wished that they were as strong as you.
I love that answer. And it's truth that when we lean into that gap between where you are and where you want to be, and looking at how far you've come, then every day, every step forward is a better place to be.
Yeah.
And we can't be beating ourselves up over setbacks. We just need to see the big picture and know that we're moving in the right direction, and love yourself through the journey, because it's a journey.
Correct. And I think that what was just dropping of me as you spoke there, it's our relationship to failure. I remember being in coach training, and the teacher up there at the front of the stage said to everybody, but I felt like it was said to me, as you feel like often in an audience, that there is no failure or any feedback came through. But what he said was, to live the life of your dreams is not for the faint-hearted. And it honestly floored me. I thought, what do you mean? I'd always had this idea that people who are living a fantastic life just got lucky. I honestly believe that. It's how I was brought up. My parents would be like, see, they just got lucky. It wasn't ever associated with work. It wasn't ever associated with, surely they never have a bad day. And what he said to me in that moment, that mentor, that teacher, he said that if you're not failing, you won't succeed. And I thought, what? Like, it totally blew my mind. I honestly, in my early 20s, did not know that you had to fail to succeed.
Mm.
So those setbacks that you're having is part of what you're learning on how to succeed. So fail fast, fail hard. Yeah.
And fail forward.
Fail forward. That's right.
And just change, work on changing that relationship you've got with failure, seeing it as a mistake, seeing it as an opportunity to take another go. I love it. It really does make a difference. And when you interview people who are successful, they all say they've changed their relationship to how they see failure. They embrace it and see it as another opportunity to learn how to move forward. So it's so true. So now, Luna, how do people work with you? Is it all group work, or can it be one-on-one? Like, what does working with you look like? Yeah,
lots of different ways. Obviously, you can buy my book, which is a passive or an indirect way to work with me. I did narrate it, so it's on Audible. So if for those people who enjoy listening rather than reading, that's available as well. So that's the kind of the first entry point if you did want to hang out with me in some description. I do a lot of work content online. So again, if you want to hang out with me from that perspective, do come. I would love to have you. I'm sure that all my links will go in the description. That'll all get sorted by the admin fairies. I don't do a lot of one-on-one work these days anymore. So for those people who do want to, I take about 5 clients a year. and they're really ready. They're really committed to be able to take it to the next level. I'm looking for people who already know the value of personal development. They already know the value of what it's like to work one-on-one with someone and how much change they will get. And we work together in a container for 6 months. So it's like my little nest. It's my little nest egg where people come to be able to, but it is entirely one-on-one. I also have a group coaching program. So that's the Self-Love Sisterhood, where, of course, you can come, we hang out twice a week. It's a real opportunity for you to be able to not only get the education, but to spend time with other people on the journey. And then I run courses from time to time, like Babes with Boundaries. I have speaking gigs where I might appear at festivals or run my own spaces. Like I ran a workshop recently called Authentically You, which is just a full day workshop locally. Lots of different ways.
And what's local, Luna?
Oh, I live in Batemans Bay. It's 4 hours south of Sydney.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to Sydney for a gig this coming weekend.
There you go.
Yeah, I love it. I hope the weather's better.
It is been pouring with rain today and chilly, but we'll see how it goes on the weekend. I will send some beautiful weather up that way for you.
You know what I do love the difference between Sydney and Adelaide is that it can be 21 degrees here and 21 degrees there in Sydney, and the difference is like 7 degrees. Like it's because we're so dry and because you're so moist, it just feels warmer.
Yeah, it's the humidity, isn't it?
I love that. It's not so good for the hair, but I just love it for everything else. It's wonderful. What a beautiful country we live in here in Australia. Wow, what a journey you've been on, Luna. This level of self-expression that you have now. And I would love to have an interview with Luna then and Luna now. And, you know, the audience can see the difference of how powerfully you've stepped into you and that level of authenticity, and how you now pay it forward by helping others step into their power and help them live their best life. I think it's an amazing place to be. It's a fabulous thing that you're offering. I love your program. For anyone who's listening to this and they were thinking about, you know, contacting you for the program, there will be other programs if you've missed the date of the 1st of September. So reach out and at least jump onto the website and grab the free ebook. Can you tell us a little bit about the ebook, Luna?
Yeah, so a couple of years back, and I run it occasionally. It's called the Self-Love Awakening Collective. So it is literally a 6-week, 8-week course that we spend time learning all of these foundational skills on how to love yourself. And we do that online. So I wrote an ebook to go alongside of that. So it literally breaks down all of those steps by step on an ebook for you to be able to really start the journey. And honestly, if that's where you want to start, it's brilliant. Also, just come hang out with me online. It is honestly, I make content, I make reels every day. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it is honestly the place to be.
I love it. I love it. Now, for most of our audience listening, they've come from a place of family and domestic violence, and you know, for myself as a survivor, when we're in that environment before we can transition out, we're living as victims. You know, our language is that way. We're, you know, we're literally taking it on the chin and then turning around and offering the other side. Like that's. Until we become self-empowered and know that there's other options, we're encased in that. Yeah. So from that perspective, a lot of the things that we hear you say today are just like so far down the track. Yeah. It's not like it can't resonate with us. Like we work to, we try to, we listen to it, but we just can't see that we're on the same page. Is there some words of advice that you could give us while we're still in this cocoon that can help us move forward?
Yeah, look, I think that that's a really great question, because in that space, and look, I'll be frank, I haven't experienced domestic or family violence the way that you've described it. And, you know, I certainly know within myself that the way that I was raised, it was a very aggressive and violent household, but never personally onto me. That's not to say that it wasn't abusive. You know, it's not to say that wasn't happening for myself. I think that when you're in the midst of it, it's very hard to see the forest of the trees. Is that what you're kind of relating to? Is that?
Yeah, it is. And the advice that we receive from people who are further down the track, it's unrelatable because it's so far the distance between where we are and where they are.
Yeah.
We don't even know what first steps to take.
Yeah. Look, I think that if, and correct me if this is again still too far, because I want to make sure that it really does land in the moment that you're referring to. Because starting question your beliefs, but not from a gaslighting point of view. You know, maybe there's people in abusive situations that have been telling you that you're not okay, or that you're not good enough, or that even through their actions, they're telling you that. Doubt your doubts about yourself. See if there's a possibility of that thought that you have of maybe I deserve this, or I did something wrong, or if I just did it differently next time, maybe all those thoughts that are coming through, I want you to start to doubt those ones and see if maybe there's a different truth that could be there somewhere buried beneath the front that you're seeing up here in your head. Start to doubt your doubts.
I love that. Doubt your doubts. I love that. It has been a powerful 30 minutes, Luna.
Thank 30 minutes already. Look at that. Yeah, that sure has.
Oh, we can talk, girlfriend. So now all of Luna's links to her upcoming courses, and also to the website, so that you can catch that free ebook.
Yep.
And hang out in Luna's proximity and check out her content. You'll love it. Will be loaded here on the description and also in the show notes. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to spend quality time with you. And thank you. Can we say goodbye to the audience now?
See everybody. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.